Before we begin, make sure you're somewhere quiet. Turn off the lights. Put on your headphones. Because the stories you're about to hear aren't just scary. These are the kinds of experiences people don't talk about. If you enjoy true horror stories, unsettling encounters, and disturbing events that happen to real people, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Now, let's begin. When the lockdown started in early 2020, I was living alone in a small ground-floor apartment on the edge of town. It wasn't a bad place, cheap rent, quiet neighbors, and close enough to a grocery store that I didn't have to travel far. At the time, being alone didn't scare me. In fact, I thought quarantine would be easy. I was wrong. The first few weeks were uneventful. I worked from home, ordered groceries, watched too much news, and slept strange hours. The world outside felt paused. Streets were empty. Sirens echoed farther than usual. Even during the day, everything felt muted, like reality had been turned down a notch. That's when the knocking started. It happened on a Tuesday night around 9:40 p.m. I remember the time because I had just finished washing my hands for what felt like the 100th time that day. 3 slow knocks came from my front door. Knock. 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 Not loud. Not urgent. Just deliberate. I froze. Nobody visited anyone during lockdown. Friends didn't drop by. Neighbors avoided each other like strangers with knives. I walked to the door quietly and looked through the peephole. No one was there. The hallway light was on. Empty. Silent. I waited for a full minute before unlocking the door and cracking it open. The hall smelled like disinfectant and old carpet. Nothing seemed disturbed. I closed and locked the door, telling myself it was probably a neighbor knocking on the wrong unit. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Just checking in. You didn't answer. My stomach dropped. I replied. Who is this? 3 dots appeared instantly. Health and safety. I stared at the screen. No official message would come from a random number at night. I typed back that they had the wrong apartment. No reply. I blocked the number and tried to forget it. The next morning, I found a small white flyer taped to my door. Mandatory wellness check, unit occupied. No logo. No name. No contact information. I tore it down and threw it away. That night, the knocking came back. Same rhythm. Same time. This time, I didn't answer at all. My phone buzzed again. We know you're inside. I didn't sleep. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. I barely heard neighbors anymore. No footsteps. No doors. Just silence, broken occasionally by distant sirens. On Friday afternoon, I went out to take the trash. That's when I noticed something that made my chest tighten. Red paint marks on doors. Not every door, just a few. Mine included. A small red line just above the handle. I called the building manager. He sounded confused and told me no one had been authorized to mark doors. He also casually mentioned that several tenants had moved out suddenly during lockdown without notice. That night, I heard someone in the hallway. Slow footsteps. Stopping outside my door. Then, breathing. Not heavy breathing. Controlled. Patient. I stood in my bedroom holding my phone, ready to call the police. Another text came in. Please remain calm. This will only take a minute. I called 911. The dispatcher listened patiently and told me officers were overwhelmed with lockdown-related calls. She asked if someone was actively breaking in. As if on cue, something scraped softly against my door. Metal on metal. Like a tool being tested. The dispatcher stayed on the line, telling me to stay locked in my room. Then the footsteps outside walked away. The next morning, police finally came by. They checked the hallway. No signs of forced entry. No flyers. No paint marks. They suggested stress and isolation might be getting to me. That afternoon, I received one final text. "You passed." I moved out 2 weeks later. Months afterward, I found a local forum post from someone who lived 2 buildings over. They claimed during quarantine, strangers posing as the health officials were entering apartments after dark. Some residents were never heard from again. The thread was deleted within hours. And to this day, I still panic whenever someone knocks at night. I live alone in a small apartment complex on the outskirts of town. It's one of those places built in the early 90s, thin walls, narrow hallways, cheap carpet that always smells faintly of dust and cleaning chemicals. Nothing special. Just a place to sleep after work. Or at least, it was. When the lockdown started in early 2020, everything changed. My job switched to remote overnight shifts, which meant my sleep schedule flipped completely. I was awake all night, slept through most of the day, and barely saw another human being for weeks at a time. The complex itself became eerily quiet. No kids running outside. No neighbors arguing. No doors opening and closing. Just silence. At first, it felt peaceful. Then I started noticing him. The man in apartment 3B, directly across the hall from me. Before quarantine, I barely registered his existence. He was just another face you pass without remembering. Tall. Skinny. Always wearing dark clothes. No small talk. No eye contact. But during lockdown, something felt off. For starters, he never left. Not once. I noticed because I started tracking the sounds in the hallway. When you're isolated long enough, you become hyper-aware of everything. Every footstep. Every door creak. Every cough through the walls. I heard my other neighbors come and go. Food deliveries. Trash runs. Occasional late-night walks to stay sane. But 3B? Nothing. No footsteps. No door opening. No voices. No TV sounds. Yet every night, right around 2:30 a.m., I'd hear movement coming from inside his apartment. Not loud. Not obvious. Just slow pacing. Back and forth. Like someone walking deliberately from one end of the room to the other. At first, I told myself he worked nights too. Or maybe he was just restless like everyone else. But then came the smells. A heavy, metallic odor started seeping into the hallway. Not strong enough to immediately recognize, but wrong enough to make my stomach tighten whenever I stepped outside my door. It reminded me of old pennies, mixed with rot. I contacted the building manager. He brushed it off, said everyone was stressed, and suggested I open a window. That's when things escalated. One night during my shift, my internet cut out. That never happens. I got up to reset the router and noticed something strange. My apartment felt occupied. Not physically, but in that instinctual way you feel when someone else is nearby. I checked the door. Locked. Windows. Closed. Then I heard it. A faint tapping sound. Coming from the hallway side of my apartment. From the wall. Tap. Pause. Tap, tap. Like someone knocking, but gently. Carefully. I press my ear against the wall. On the other side, apartment 3B, I heard breathing. Slow. Controlled. Intentional. Not muffled like through a wall. Close. Right there. I stepped back, heart pounding. The tapping stopped. The next morning, I found something outside my door. A grocery receipt. Crumpled. Dated 3 weeks earlier. From a store across town. I don't shop there. And written on the back, in shaky handwriting, were the words. You forgot this. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my couch with the lights off, listening. At 2:30 a.m. exactly, the pacing started again. But this time, it wasn't just pacing. I heard furniture dragging. A chair scraping across the floor. Then silence. Then a low whisper. Not loud enough to understand. But definitely human. I checked the peephole. The hallway lights were off, management had started turning them off at night to save power. But something blocked the dim emergency light at the far end. A shape. Standing inches from my door. Not moving. Just there. I didn't open it. I didn't speak. I stood frozen for nearly an hour until my legs went numb. Eventually, the shape moved away. The next day, I called the police. They did a welfare check on 3B. No answer. They forced the door open. And what they found still haunts me. The apartment was empty. No furniture. No food. No clothes. Just a single chair placed in the center of the living room. Facing the door. The floor was stained dark around it. The officers exchanged looks but didn't say much. One of them quietly asked me how long I'd been hearing him. I told them everything. They checked records. Apartment 3B had been officially vacant since 2018. No tenant. No lease. No utilities. Nothing. That night, I stayed with a friend. But around 2:30 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. No text. Just a photo. It showed my apartment hallway. My door. And someone standing in front of it. Tall. Skinny. Facing the camera. I moved out a week later. But sometimes, when I'm awake late at night, I still hear pacing. And every time my internet cuts out, I check the walls first. This happened during the first year of quarantine, when the world felt like it had pressed pause, but fear hadn't. In my city, local authorities were doing daily wellness check-in calls for people who lived alone. The idea was simple: make sure you were alive, healthy, and following quarantine rules. You'd get a short automated call, press a number, maybe answer a couple questions, and that was it. At least, that's what it was supposed to be. I was 27, living alone in a small one-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor of an older building. No roommates. No pets. No family nearby. Just me, my laptop, and way too much silence. The first week of quarantine was uneventful. Boring, even. But by week 3, the isolation started doing strange things to my head. Every sound felt louder. Every shadow felt closer. That's when the calls started. Every day at exactly 6:30 p.m., my phone would ring. No caller ID. Just unknown. I assumed it was the wellness check-in, so I answered. A calm, robotic voice spoke. Hello. This is your daily quarantine wellness check. Please confirm you are safe by pressing 1. I pressed 1. Thank you. Please remain inside your residence. Click. That was it. The next day, same call. Same voice. Same time. Then on the 4th day, something changed. The call came at 6:30 as usual. I answered. Hello. This is your daily quarantine wellness check. I waited for the prompt. There was a pause. Then the voice said something new. Please confirm you are alone. I frowned. That wasn't part of the usual message. I hesitated, then pressed 1 anyway. Another pause. Then. Thank you. We see you. The call disconnected. My stomach tightened, but I laughed it off. Probably a glitch. maybe a new update to the system. That night, I barely slept. At around 2:10 a.m., I heard something faint. A sound coming from the hallway outside my apartment. Not footsteps. Breathing. Slow. Controlled. Like someone standing still, trying not to make noise. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, listening. After about 30 seconds, it stopped. The next morning, I convinced myself it was stress. Cabin fever. Nothing more. That evening, at exactly 6:30 p.m., my phone rang again. Unknown. I answered. The voice spoke immediately. Hello. This is your daily quarantine wellness check. Then it paused. And this time, it said, "You didn't answer the door last night." My blood went cold. What? I said out loud, forgetting it was supposed to be automated. The voice continued, calm and flat. "Please confirm you are still complying." I didn't press anything. "Please confirm," it repeated. My hands were shaking. "Who is this?" I asked. The line crackled softly. Then the voice said something that made my chest tighten. "We knocked. You didn't answer." The call ended. I didn't move for a long time. I checked my front door. Locked. Chain still on. No signs of forced entry. That night, I pushed a chair under the door handle and slept with the lights on. The next day, I called the city hotline. They told me something that made my skin crawl. According to their records, my number wasn't enrolled in any wellness check program. I asked how that was possible. The woman on the phone said, "Sir, we stopped those automated calls months ago." That evening, I didn't answer when my phone rang. 6:30 p.m. came and went. Then my phone buzzed with a voicemail. No caller ID. I played it. The same voice. But this time, it wasn't robotic. It was closer. Quieter. Almost amused. "You should answer," it whispered. "We're already inside." I dropped my phone. At that exact moment, I heard it. A soft click. From inside my apartment. The sound of a lock turning. Not the front door. The bathroom. I ran to my bedroom, slammed the door shut, and locked it. Then came the footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Moving through my living room. Stopping right outside my bedroom door. The voice spoke again, this time, not through the phone. Through the wood. "You passed the checks," it said calmly. "Now it's our turn." I don't remember calling the police. But I must have, because red and blue lights flooded my bedroom window less than 10 minutes later. When officers entered my apartment, they found nothing. No intruder. No signs of forced entry. But they did find something else. In my kitchen, taped neatly to the fridge, was a printed sheet of paper. It had my name. My address. My daily routine. And a checklist. Every day was marked off. Except one. Tonight. Under it, written in pen, were 5 words. Quarantine is easier watched. I moved out the next week. Changed my number. Left the city. But sometimes, at exactly 6:30 p.m., my phone still lights up. No caller ID. I never answer. Because once I did. And the voice said, "We miss checking on you."